At the EV Reality Check booth in every single city, we're talking with people from the local area, from different stakeholders, automakers, dealers, electric utility companies, policymakers that are on the front lines of making electrification happen. So if you are a ComEd customer, you're going to want to sit down and listen to the conversation we're about to have with Cristina Botero from ComEd, and you are the Senior Manager for Beneficial Electrification. What does that mean?
Thank you for having me, first of all, Matt. Beneficial electrification means really every effort and program to electrify and bring net benefits to our customer. Therefore, the word beneficial ahead of electrification. So my team is in charge of all the customer programs that ComEd offers in order to help the state with its goal of 1 million EVs by 2030.
So a million EVs by 2030, obviously we're moving in that direction. It requires a lot of coordination and collaboration between ComEd and other stakeholder groups. That could be, again, dealerships, that could be automakers, that could be policymakers, nonprofits, also drivers. But at the end of the day, it's about building a new type of relationship with your ComEd customers that really is different from what they've known. I mean, in the past, it's kind of like my utility, ComEd, they bring me power, and I pay my bill, and the other time I might talk to them is when I'm upset because the power may have gone off for some random reason. So this new engagement with electrification and transportation is really different. It's a different kind of animal for the utility to attack. So what's been that process for you guys?
You hit the nail on the head. ComEd is currently offering or investing about $400 million over 6 years in electric vehicle programs. But the way that we designed this programs was based on what we heard from our customers, from the state agencies, from our regulator, from our communities, on what are the barriers for electrification. And we hear three things consistently. The first one, which most folks are familiar with, is high upfront prices. We know that. But incentives are not enough because there's two others. Another one is range anxiety. Where do I charge my vehicle? Some people have a home where they can install a charger. Not everyone has a home where they can, so they're relying on multifamily charging, on public charging. But the third one, which you kind of alluded to, is customer education and awareness. A lot of customers don't understand how EVs work, are not familiar with the savings, the benefits, or how to even drive an EV. So our programs have gathered customer input and ongoingly work with the community to educate and to make sure that we're incentivizing and building out charging infrastructure and reducing upfront costs.
Well, again, education's been a running theme this weekend here in Chicago, and there's a lot of people that already have EVs in the Chicago area, but really, people that come to Expo, a lot of people that show up here are first-timers. They may have a neighbor that has an EV and they were told about it, maybe they had a conversation, but it's really about engaging with new people that are part of the future of electrification. So we kind of have gone through the early adopters and the innovators. We're moving into that mass market adoption process. And we have to start thinking differently as an industry because we can't really rely on people thinking like early adopters did. They wanted to learn all the nuances and different little details, whereas everyday consumers, they just need it to work. And so really checking those boxes for making it work, there's a lot that goes on from your perspective. And then we've talked about program design this entire weekend. So that means really meeting people where they are, having a relationship with your customers. What's the process by which you've gone about? You mentioned meeting with stakeholders and talking to, for example, customers. What does that process look like to translate that into actionable efforts and programs that really work? That seems just like a lot to undertake.
Yeah, we have a range of efforts that are ongoing, and we're seeing the results, and I'll walk you through what those are, but to make sure you understand the impact of those, we started all these new programs last year. And to date, we've incentivized over 7,000 new level 2 and level 3 charging ports and over 2,000 fleet electric vehicles of all weight classes. And what I like to say the most is that 80% of the funds we've spent have been on low income and equity eligible customers. So we're not only interested in ensuring that we expand electric vehicle adoption, but that it's equitable. So how have we done that? We have different ways. We have a lot of education directly with communities. We have what we call an EV ambassador program, where we're engaging directly with community-based organizations, which are trusted people by the community to help share information about EVs, answer questions. That's a key one that we have. Another one that we have is we partner with municipalities. So we are partners with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus, who's going to be speaking in the stage later, to help municipalities become EV ready so that they can get public charging easier and work educating their customers. And then we offer, obviously, a lot of marketing, education, and just incentives upfront, engaging all the state agencies, engaging our regulator, engaging our customers, both residential and non-residential. So we really see it as a multi-pronged approach where you need to tackle everything at the same time.
No, and you bring up a good point. We're educating the public, and the expo is really about giving the public a kind of window into the electrified world. So every city the expo goes to, it is about getting people to have that first moment of a conversation. But when the expo leaves town, they have to have someone to go to have those follow-up conversations and follow-up answers. And as you describe, it's about, again, engagement with consumers. But on the behind the curtain part, there's a lot of education that has to happen with those stakeholders. Policymakers, for example, they're not necessarily thinking about what's happening within electrification to create policy that will actually move things forward. Oftentimes, I've been in the industry for a long time, and it feels like we just kind of get stuck up in our own kind of red tape, bureaucratic world, and the consumers are waiting for us to get it right. So what sort of chainsaw can we take through all that to start making happen, and what successes have you seen already in that?
We're very proud to see the successes early. We started our programs last year, and earlier this year, when we looked at the EV stats in Illinois, we noticed that EV registrations in Illinois have grown 3 to 4 times faster than in the rest of the US since last year. So that is a huge win. I told you earlier, we have a goal of 1 million EVs by 2030. We're at 150,000 in Illinois. We've come a long way. There were less than 25 EVs just in 2010. So wow. Illinois is going very fast. And I want to say ComEd is the largest electric utility in the state. We serve 9 million customers, including in northern Illinois, including the city of Chicago. And one of the things I'd like to remind folks is that our territory can save especially large amounts of money in EVs because we offer hourly rates to customers. So if you have an electric vehicle and you're able to charge it at night, you can actually charge for less than $2 a full tank if you have an average 80 kilowatt hour car. So it's significant.
I was looking at some of the pricing, and again, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. In Oregon, we've got pretty clean energy. We've got a lot of hydro, a lot of wind, but we're at about 10 cents per kilowatt hour. And what I discovered quickly in talking to utilities and the work that I do is a lot of times when they talk to consumers, the consumers aren't looking at the kilowatt hour price. They just kind of look at the bill and go, okay, I'm paying it. So to translate to someone, your fill-up could be literally $5 or less for a full fill-up to go 300 miles if you fill up at the right time with ComEd. It almost sounds like a fairy tale because you hear that and you kind of go, no. When I go to the gas station, it's $35, $40, maybe more, depending on my vehicle. But you can literally say to them, no, if you have a home, you park it in a garage or a driveway, this fill-up for you just went down by an astronomical number. So that's a special thing that I think a lot of people still are they don't know what they don't know. They don't see the utility as a fuel provider. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I've seen. I guess how can that then translate to talking to the stakeholder groups like local dealerships, for example? They don't see ComEd as a transportation partner just yet. How does that translate?
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking that because part of our efforts have involved building 2 key networks of partners. The first one is a partner of dealers and manufacturers that sell EVs. We train them on electric vehicles. They are key partners to get the vehicles out with our incentives. So I think this partnership is ensuring that all this information gets to customers and that they understand truly how much they can save over the life of the vehicle versus just seeing the sticker price. And then the other network that we've built is a network of EV charging installers. We call them EV service providers. And those are the folks who are pulling the charging stations in homes, public charging stations, in municipalities, you name it. And they are also key, not only to helping us spread the word on our incentives, but on how does this even work? How should I charge? They're all key partners, not just us.
The last thing you said, the how should I charge and how can I charge, that's one thing that I think the industry is still struggling to translate because we've got a conditioned populace of millions and millions of drivers who their concept of filling up is I got to go somewhere and then I go ka-clunk with the pump and it takes me 5-10 minutes. But they can kind of do it wherever they want, however they want. And we really don't have to explain that to someone who, for example, someone could be, wealthy and have a really nice house and 9 cars, and they might pull up at the exact same gas station as someone who just got their license and they're driving their first car. Very different lifestyles, but they had to go fill up the same way. But that dynamic is changing. And so some of the programs that I know that ComEd has put together, for example, if you are a homeowner, you can get a benefit for like a $2,000 rebate, up to $2,000 for putting a home charger in at home. But as you mentioned earlier, there are some elements for people that are lower income that can get additional benefits. What's that program like?
Yes, thank you for asking. We have 3 incentive programs. The one for residential customers offers rebates for both the charger and the installation at home, up to $3,750 if you're low income or if you live in state-designated zip codes that are called equity investment areas.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
there's a threshold. They just like sign up and kind of tell you what they are, and they can see if they're in that threshold. Okay.
Yes, please go to comet.com/EV if you'd like to find out more. And then if you're a business and you either would like to install charging infrastructure or buy a EV for your business, we offer incentives of up to $180,000 for EVs for your business, all weight classes, class 1 through 8 buses, as well as for public and private charging infrastructure level 2 and DC fast charging.
That's an interesting part of it is you're not just applying, the fill up happens now at home or away from home. So you have to have programs that align with all those different options because you're not just having a B2C conversation, business to customer. It is B2B in a lot of ways that will inevitably be either a fleet operated, charging station, or it could be, for example, a municipal that says, well, we want to put in charging that's publicly accessible, but they're the ones that have to get the grants to get the money. So there's so many different little check boxes you have to think about. So out of curiosity, how did you get into this? I mean, this is, there's a lot to tackle with this, and we're talking on a localized level. So what was your journey like to get into EVs and into energy?
I've spent my whole career in the energy sector, specifically in the sustainable energy sector. And I came into the utility world about 5 years ago. I was working more on the solar and battery space. And I was interested in the EV space because Illinois is an especially well-placed position where the vast majority of our energy comes from zero emission sources. So when you switch to an EV in Illinois, you are truly reducing emissions right away. So when the state passed this new legislation requiring all our major utilities to file an investment plan in this field, I volunteered first to help run it. So it's been a fantastic journey, and I just want to encourage everyone, if you're not sure what benefits EVs can bring to you, to your business, we offer a lot of online and personalized resources and assessments to help you understand how that could look for you.
Well, I was going to say, kind of getting to that is we're talking about this. People will hear this later. People that hear the show are hearing about this if they're ComEd customers. Where do they go for a lot of these resources? Is there a dedicated EV page, for example, at your website?
Yes, comet.com/EV is the starting point. And I talked about incentives, so rebates. We talked a little bit about also partnerships, but a couple of things I did mention is we offer free assessments of different kinds. One of them is called a fleet electrification assessment. If you want to electrify your fleet, and it can be a fleet of one, as long as you're a business, it's a fleet, we will sit down with you and help you understand what is the right choice of vehicle, charging plan, and how much you expect to save over the lifetime of the vehicle. That is free for you as a customer. And then we also offer online resources, and we're working on getting out free multi-family charging assessments for property owners who want to install charging. And it's not really as easy as you would want to, so we want to also be more active helping them install that.
That's a great point, because a lot of people that might live in a condo building or an apartment complex, there's tons of parking there normally, but there's either dedicated parking or open parking, and they don't necessarily have the understanding of where they start if they want to buy an EV and get something at their building. But they could then, for example, provide, if there's a portion of your website, go to their leasing office and say, look, please go and check this out because you can help me have the car that I want and live here and charge here. You're setting up we got to remove the roadblocks for every type of potential EV owner. Because without doing so, it turns into this game of, well, one day I could own one, but I don't have the right circumstances for my lifestyle. And I think that's one of the biggest things at Expo is that you arrive at an event like this, you see all these different options, but we still have yet to help a lot of people understand how their shopping journey might go. Because if it's someone who's a homeowner, you've described a lot of different benefits that people will have immediately, but they need to ask that question first. And car shoppers haven't had to ask that question ever. We just go and buy the car we want, and that's kind of it. So you mentioned that there's all these different resources, the fleet assessment one included. What do you foresee is still needed? There's a lot you've mentioned that you've done. We're kind of at the beginning of this conversation. So what do you think still needs to be done?
Yeah. That's a great question. We're doing a lot of research on managed charging. And various technologies also to expose folks who don't have an EV or who may want an EV or who maybe don't want an EV but haven't been exposed to it. So I think there's a few things. First is managed charging, make that a program such that, we talked about charging at night, that you're not going in at night and charging but can plug at any time and then your utility automatically charges it at the time that's best for them. I think that's an area we're actively working on. Another one that we're working on is looking at vehicles like buses, electric buses. Is there a value that those batteries could provide to the grid when they're not operating? It's known as vehicle to grid, so we're also looking at that actively. But ultimately, I think the bigger step that we want to take is we want to get all these vehicles in the mass market so that eventually we won't need the incentives up front and folks will realize the benefits that bring from them. And that's going to take some time and a lot of education. So I think the number one for me is education.
Education. It's been the running theme of the weekend. But again, I think that's exactly what Expo's about. I mean, Expo started out 5 years ago. It's in 3 cities. It's now in 8 cities around the country. And everywhere the Expo goes, this conversation is had where there are utilities in every single area, every single city. There's dealerships and there's shoppers that need to figure out how all of that works for them. So at the end of the day, I look at this, and you said you've been in your role for about 5 years now, you said. And again, the automotive world I've been in for 25, been in EVs for about 10. And it's interesting to see the speed at which things have gone in the last half a decade, really in the time you've had your role. But we're still at the beginning. Yeah. There's so much that's still happening, but the Expo proves out that there's a lot of interested people that want to know more about this product. And as you mentioned about the cost aspect of it, we've got a lot of vehicles coming off of lease that have been on the road for 3 to 5 years. Now all of a sudden these are cars that aren't $40,000, they might be $20,000, $25,000. And there's still, 16 days left for that used EV tax credit from the federal government. So that's something to look into if you're hearing this conversation. As we round things out, is there anything else you want people to know about what ComEd is working on and anything we haven't covered?
No, please stay tuned because our incentives were recently approved to continue through 2028. So please come to comed.com/EV, have a look at all the resources we have. And if you have any opportunity to test drive an EV while you're here, please use it. One of the things I'd love to see is more dealers offering more EVs as loaners when folks drop in their gas engines for maintenance. I think that would expose a lot of the customers to EVs, and I think when you drive it, you realize drivability is amazing and you start realizing the benefits. So find out more, comed.com/EV. There's so many resources from us and our partners there.
That's great. And yeah, again, at the end of the day, a car is a car. It just matters what you fill it up with. And EVs, for all the work you're doing, for anybody who's a ComEd customer, again, you've set the stage for how all this work that's being done behind the scenes is going to benefit all of you as owners in the future. So thank you so much, Cristina, for what you're doing. This is a good conversation for every Metro Market Expo goes to. But I got to say, congratulations for all the successes you have had. It's not, sometimes it's hard to hear, it's like we got to keep going. But for everything you've said, you've gotten a lot through that required a lot of stakeholder alignment. So for you and your team, great work.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is the EV Reality Check booth. It is powered by GreenCars.com. We've been talking with Cristina from ComEd and her team's efforts to basically make the electrification of your fueling experience easier, more approachable, more cost-effective. So for more information, check out info at comed.com/EV. And if you have any questions, we'll be here for a minute. We got more conversations coming up here at EV Reality Check.